I'm 42, and I've never written anything like this before, but my hands are shaking just typing this. I've been sitting with this for a week now, and I can't keep it in anymore. What happened to my daughter has left me questioning everything. My parenting, my marriage, my sanity. It started 6 months ago with a fight. Not our first, not even our worst, but something about it felt final. My daughter Ava is 20. She's headstrong, stubborn, way too smart for her own good. She came home from college for spring break, and we clashed almost immediately. It was over something small at first. Her messy room, her refusal to answer texts when she's out, the usual. But then it escalated. She accused me of always siding with my husband, her stepfather, said I never listened to her growing up, that I cared more about keeping him happy than protecting her. Those words cut deep, because I did choose my husband over her at one point. That's the part no one knows. Not even my closest friends. I've spent years pretending everything in our family was solid, functional, picture perfect. But that night, when Ava said what she did, it was like she'd yanked off a mask I didn't even realize I'd been wearing. We screamed at each other for nearly an hour. She ended it by storming out of the house with nothing but her phone, her wallet, and the clothes she had on. I figured she'd cool off and come back. She didn't. Not that night, not the next day, not the next week. I filed a missing person report after 48 hours, but the police treated it like a runaway situation. She was 20, technically an adult. They said there was no evidence of foul play, just a girl blowing off steam after a fight with her mom, but I knew something was wrong. Ava didn't just ghost people. She didn't miss classes or deadlines or go off the grid. Her professors said she hadn't been back to campus. Her phone was off. No social media. It was like she had vanished into thin air. The weeks dragged by. I barely ate. My husband kept saying she was just being dramatic, that she'd show up eventually, but I couldn't stop the panic from building. Every time the phone rang, every time I heard a knock at the door, I thought it was her. I cried myself to sleep for months. Then, just like that, she came back. 6 months later, on a random Tuesday night, I opened the front door to find her standing there. Older, thinner, eyes sunken, hair chopped off, with a look in her eyes I had never seen before. She didn't say a word, just walked in, sat down on the couch, and stared at me. What she said next broke my world in half. She sat on the couch like she'd never left, like we hadn't spent half a year thinking she was dead, or worse. I couldn't breathe. My daughter, who had vanished without a single trace, was sitting 10 feet from me, silent, and staring at the family photo on the wall like it was a stranger's face. When I asked where she'd been, she didn't answer right. She looked exhausted, but not physically, emotional, like something inside her had burned out and never been replaced. Then, in the calmest voice I've ever heard her use, she said she'd been living with someone she knew, someone I knew too. I asked her who, already feeling the walls closing in. She looked straight at me and said, "Your husband." My blood ran cold. I asked what she meant. What kind of sick joke was that? She said he hadn't just found her after the fight. He'd known where she went, because he was the one who picked her up. I couldn't speak. I felt the room spinning around me. I thought I'd misheard. She told me everything. The night she left, she called a rideshare to go to her friend's place, but he intercepted her. She never explained how he found out where she was, only that he did. He told her I was furious, that I didn't want her back, that she should give me space, let things settle. He would take care of her. She believed him. For the next 3 months, she lived in a small rental unit he kept in another part of town, one I didn't even know existed. She was never technically missing. He had her the whole time, and he lied. Every single day. He knew exactly where she was while I was losing my mind and reporting her as a missing person. I was shaking. I asked her why she stayed, why she didn't call me, why she didn't come home. That's when she dropped the real bomb. She said she had tried, but he took her phone, told her she couldn't contact me, that I needed time, that if she reached out, she'd only make things worse. She said he controlled everything, what she ate, where she went, who she could talk to. He even told her he'd handle her professors, her college, and that I was in on it. She said she thought I'd abandoned her. Then one day he stopped showing up altogether, just disappeared, left her with no money, no ID, no way to get home. She spent the next 2 months bouncing between shelters and friends from school who didn't ask questions, and when she finally worked up the courage to come back, he was here, sitting in the kitchen, acting like none of it had happened. I asked her if anything else happened between them. She went completely still. Then she looked at me and said, "I don't want to talk about that." And that's when I knew there was more, but I wasn't ready to hear it. After Ava said those words, "I don't want to talk about that yet," I felt something deep in me just collapse. Like some instinct I'd buried years ago had finally clawed its way to the surface. I told her she didn't have to say anything else until she was ready, but the look in her eyes said enough. She didn't need to say it. I already knew. Not the details, not yet, but the shape of the truth. The kind of damage that doesn't come from a bad argument or a misunderstanding. My husband came home an hour later. I'll never forget the sound of his keys hitting the kitchen counter like it was any other. Like the air in the house wasn't thick with something poisonous. I told Ava to stay in her room and that I'd handle it. She just nodded and walked down the hallway like a ghost. When I turned to face him, I swear, he looked surprised to see me standing there. Not guilty, just surprised. As if I was the one interrupting his day. I asked him straight out, "Where has Ava been?" He barely blinked. He said he didn't know. Claimed he thought she ran off with a boy, that she was probably doing it for attention. She always had a flair for drama, he said. And I swear to God, he smiled when he said it. It took everything in me not to throw something at him. I told him Ava was back, that she'd told me everything, that I knew. He froze, and for the first time in our entire marriage, I saw real fear on his face. Not guilt, not sadness, fear. He didn't ask what she said. He didn't even try to deny it, just stared at me, mouth slightly open, breathing shallow. Then he turned, walked back out the door, and drove off. He hasn't come back since. No calls, no texts, nothing. I filed a police report that night. Ava gave a basic statement, but she's still not ready to tell the whole story. She's been seeing a counselor through a trauma center, and they've advised not to push for details until she decides it's time. What she has told me is this: he made her feel like she was the problem, that I was better off without her, that if she didn't keep quiet, she'd ruin everything. He didn't need to threaten her. He just convinced her she didn't matter. That's how he did it, through shame, manipulation, isolation. He never laid a hand on her, not in the way you might be thinking. But what he did? It was still abuse. And it's going to take years for her to untangle what was real from what he made her believe. And the worst part? I missed all the signs. When I say I missed the signs, I don't mean I overlooked a couple of red flags. I mean I bulldozed through a highway full of them with my eyes wide open and convinced myself I was imagining things. Ava had been dropping breadcrumbs for years. Subtle comments, shifts in her mood when he walked into a room, how she always went quiet when we were all sitting at the dinner table. At the time, I chalked it up to teenage moodiness or our rocky mother-daughter dynamic. But now, looking back, I realize I failed her in ways I can't take back. She told me once when she was 16 that she didn't like the way he looked at her sometimes. She said it made her feel weird. I remember brushing it off, telling her she was being overly sensitive, that he was just awkward and didn't know how to connect with teenagers. She never brought it up again, and now I know why. She thought I chose him then, and again, and again. And the truth is, I did. I chose the version of my life that was easiest to accept, the one where I was happily remarried, raising a daughter in a blended family, hosting barbecues and smiling in Christmas cards. I didn't want to believe anything darker could be happening right under my roof, but it was, and I let it happen. After filing the police report, everything moved in slow motion. An investigator came by to speak with Ava. She didn't say much, just confirmed he'd kept her from contacting, controlled her finances, and manipulated her into isolation. Apparently that was enough to launch a case for coercive control, which is being taken more seriously in our state now. But without more explicit evidence, the investigation hit a wall pretty fast, and Ava wasn't ready to press further yet. Meanwhile, I was left trying to figure out who the hell I'd actually married. He had a second apartment, a separate bank account, a lockbox I didn't even know existed until the cops found it behind a false pan in the garage. Inside were Ava's student ID, her driver's license, and an old phone she said went missing months before it ran away. The kicker? There was also a burner phone, and messages on it, texts from him to someone labeled E. We don't know who E is yet, but from the tone it's clear that this wasn't the first time he'd played this kind of game. He never came back to the house. Not once. Not even to grab his thing, and thank God. I changed the locks, filed for divorce, and put a security system on the house within 48 hours. My brother-in-law is staying with us for now, just to be safe. Ava sleeps with her door locked, even though she knows he's gone. She still flinches when someone raises their voice, even during TV shows. I don't know how long it'll take for her to feel safe again. I don't know how long it'll take me. The thing that keeps me up at night isn't just what he did to Ava. It's how normal everything seemed. That's what haunts me. He made breakfast every Sunday, remembered our anniversary down to the hour, helped Ava with her FAFSA forms, bought her a necklace for graduation that she wore every day until the night she vanished. He was charming, thoughtful, helpful, even affectionate in ways that looked perfectly appropriate. That's the part that messes with my head. He didn't scream. He didn't hit. He didn't isolate her by locking her in a room. He isolated her by becoming the good guy and making her feel like she was the one drifting away from me. Now I'm left replaying every family dinner, every vacation, every quiet Sunday night, wondering which moments were real and which were just part of his performance. The police called 3 days after the report. They'd tracked him down through the second apartment's lease info. Turns out he hadn't run very far. He was staying in a hotel less than 40 minutes away. When they found him, he was calm, cooperated fully, said he just wanted to give everyone space. They couldn't hold. Not yet. No hard evidence. No confession. And Ava's not ready to press criminal charges. She's terrified that testifying would break her for good. And I get that. But he's still out there, walking around like he didn't emotionally kidnap my daughter, like he didn't tear our family apart while pretending to protect it. I wake up every night between 2 and 3 a.m. with this buzzing feeling in my chest like I'm about to scream. I check the doors 3 times. I peek into Ava's room just to make sure she's still there, still breathing, still safe. She hasn't told me much more. She's sleeping more now, eating a little better. Her therapist says she's showing signs of dissociation, which makes sense. Some days she's quiet and guarded, other days she's sarcastic and cutting, like the old Ava, but sharper, and the only time she talks freely is when we're not at home. In the house, she still feels watched, even with the cameras, even with the locks. Last night, she asked me if I remembered that necklace, the graduation one. I nodded. She told me she buried it in a park 2 weeks before she came home. Said it felt like removing a GPS tracker. She was half joking, but I didn't laugh because I think she was right. Ava's been back for a little over 5 weeks now, and the house feels like a hollow shell of what it used to be. Every photo, every piece of furniture, every inch of paint feels like it's part of someone else's life. Someone stupid and blind and proud of her happy family. I can't even bring myself to sit at the kitchen table anymore. That's where he used to kiss my cheek every morning before work. That's where he used to sit and help Ava organize her college schedule. God, I hate that I ever found it sweet. I used to tell people how lucky I was that they got along so well. Now I can't unsee it. I keep replaying little things. How he always insisted on helping her with adult stuff I didn't have time for, like renewing her ID, paying her first month's rent, taking her to the dentist. I let him step in. I told myself it was co-parent, support, love, but it was something else. I don't know what to call it yet. But it wasn't love. Ava's therapist called me privately yesterday, not to break confidentiality, but to prepare me. She said Ava's starting to talk about the middle months, the time in the apartment, the things he told her, the way he convinced her that I wouldn't want her back. She's starting to remember things that make her sick, and now she wants to remember more. She's asked about hypnotherapy, trauma regression. The therapist is hesitant, but said they'll move slowly, only with consent. I asked if she thinks he touched her. There was a long pause. Then she said, "We don't have that answer yet, but Ava's language, it's suggestive of grooming, psychological captivity. She's showing signs of PTSD that typically come from long-term manipulation or emotional entrapment. In other words, yes, but not with proof, not yet. And it makes me feel like I'm going insane. Because if I knew, I could burn his world down. I could press charges. I could drag his face into the light where everyone could see what he is. But I can't force Ava to speak. I won't. It has to be hers. Still, every part of me is screaming for justice, for revenge, for something. I spend my nights scrolling through court records, police forums, support groups, anything to find one piece of precedent, something that matches, something that says I'm not crazy, because that's what he always did. He made me feel crazy. Ava said once that he called her high-strung when she cried about missing me. He told her I was better off without her. She believed him. I still don't know how to live with that. Something shifted this week. Ava finally showed me her journal. Not all of it, just a few pages. She's been writing every night since she got back. Her therapist encouraged it. I didn't even know she was keeping one until she handed it to me, open to an entry dated 4 months ago. The handwriting was shaky, rushed, like she wrote it during a panic attack. The first line said, "I think he's testing me." She wrote about how he would swing between being overly kind, bringing her food, buying her new clothes, and going silent for days. She said he made her repeat certain things, over and over, like, "You left because you were hurting your mom," and "Your mom doesn't know how to love people who don't agree with her." That was the language, the pattern. Constant blame, gaslighting, guilt, and then this. Last night he told me he used to dream about raising me, that he wished he'd met Mom earlier, so I could have been his daughter. He laughed like it was a joke, but he looked at me for a long time after that. Too long. I had to stop reading. My vision blurred. I couldn't breathe. Ava saw my hands shaking and just said, "That's why I left the necklace in the park." That night, and it hit me, that necklace wasn't just a symbol of control. It was his leash, the thing he gave her, wrapped up in fatherly pride, worn like a collar, and the day she buried it, she finally broke free, even if she didn't know it yet. I asked her gently if she was ready to make a full statement. She didn't answer at first. Then she said she wanted to talk to someone higher than a therapist, a detective, a female one. That was the moment I realized she was building toward something. She's not just surviving it, she's preparing for war. The same night, I got an email from a burner account. No name, no message, just an attachment. It was a photo of Ava, taken from a distance. Recent. She was walking out of a trauma center near our town. It had been taken from a car window, from the passenger side, and just like that, I knew. He's still watching her. I don't remember how long I sat there staring at that photo. It was time-stamped. Taken 2 days ago. The angle made it clear it was shot from inside a car, maybe even as it was moving. But what chilled me to the bone wasn't the image, it was the message behind it. He was letting us know. He was still out there, still watching, still in control. or at least trying to be. I didn't tell Ava about the photo right away. I couldn't. She'd just started to sleep through the night again, just started opening up about what happened. I couldn't drop that on her. Not yet. So I forwarded it to the detective assigned to our case and asked one question. Is this enough to take action? 2 hours later, I got a call. The detective's tone was different this time. No more cautious neutrality. She said the photo, when paired with Ava's journal and her recent sessions with the trauma center, might finally be enough to issue a temporary restraining order. Might. But here's the worst part. A restraining order only matters if the person cares about legal boundaries, and we both knew he didn't. She advised installing outdoor cameras, locking every entry point, and giving Ava a safety phone that can dial the police with one button. We already had most of that in place, but now it felt like we were preparing for a siege. That night, I sat Ava down and showed her the photo. I watched the color drain from her face. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She didn't even speak. She just stared at it for a long time and then said, "He wants me scared, but I'm not giving him that." I didn't expect that. I expected her to unravel, to shut down. Instead, she pulled her hoodie on, tied her hair up, and asked if I'd drive her to the police station in the morning. She said she wanted to give a full statement. She did. She sat there for 2 hours, voice shaking but steady, telling a female detective every sick, manipulative thing he said and did. Not all of it, not yet, but enough. Enough that the detective asked her quietly, "Would you feel safe testifying?" Ava looked her straight in the eye and said, "Yes. I have to be the one who ends this. I've never been more." The wheels are turning now. But we both know how dangerous people get when they realize their mask is slipping. And based on what came next, he knows exactly what we're doing. It happened 2 nights after Ava gave her statement. We were asleep, finally, both of us knocked out after an exhausting day with lawyers and trauma advocates. I had started sleeping in Ava's room, on a mattress next to her bed, ever since we got that photo. Every creak in the house made me jolt awake now. But that night, it wasn't a creak. It was a thud, then another, like something heavy dropped outside her window. I sat up fast, my heart hammering so loud I thought it might wake her. I peeked through the blinds, my hands already reaching for the baseball bat under the bed. But at first I saw nothing, just the motion light flickering in the backyard. Then I saw it. A rock. No, several rocks, all with something taped to them. I woke Ava and called the police, trying to keep calm. She was groggy, confused, until she saw me holding one of the rocks. Her eyes locked on the paper taped to it. It was a photo of her again. Different this time. Closer. She was sitting on a bench outside the therapy center, reading a book, written across the top in thick black marker. She lies. We didn't sleep after that. The cops showed up within 15 minutes, took the rocks, took the photos, took my front door security footage. They caught the edge of a car's bumper leaving the driveway. The plates were deliberately covered. The detective came the next morning with 2 updates. 1, she filed for an emergency protective order. This time, it was approved. 2, he'd already violated it. They couldn't prove he threw the rocks. Not without a face, not without a witness. But the judge considered it a credible threat under active investigation, which meant we could now file for a full no-contact order and begin proceedings to press criminal charges. Ava didn't even flinch. She just nodded and asked, "When can I be in the room?" They told her she'd need to give video testimony if the case proceeded, and she said, "Good. I want him to see my face." I couldn't believe it. The girl who came home 6 weeks ago barely able to make eye contact was now preparing to stand in court and expose every dark corner of what he did to her. I wanted to feel victorious, but all I felt was dread, because people like him, they don't go quietly, and we were just getting started. The court date was set for exactly 4 weeks from the day Ava gave her full statement. 4 weeks to prepare, 4 weeks to build a case, 4 weeks to wonder what else he'd try. We spent those days walking a tightrope, between fear and fury, dread and defiance. Ava spent hours with trauma advocates, rehearsing her testimony, reading every line of her statement until the words stopped feeling like wounds and started feeling like truth. Me? I barely functioned. Every day I waited for something to snap. A break-in, a confrontation, a letter, a headline. But nothing came. No new photos. No more rocks. Just silence. And that was somehow worse. I started to wonder if he'd vanished again, fled the state, moved underground. Cowards like him don't always stick around for consequences. But then, the knock. It came 2 days before the court date, right as I was making tea, just after Ava had gone for a walk with her support work. I opened the door, and there he was, calm, smiling, wearing the same stupid watch I gave him for his birthday 2 years ago. He didn't try to come in, didn't shout, didn't threaten. He just looked at me and said, "You don't have to do this. You're going to ruin everything." I stared at him. My hands were trembling, but my voice wasn't. I said only one thing, "You already did," and then I shut the door. The police arrested him 15 minutes later, thanks to the protective order in our security camera. He was booked for violating the no-contact rule, and the officers told me they'd strongly recommend holding him until the hearing. The day of court, Ava wore all black. Not to be dramatic. To take her power back. She gave her video testimony with more control and calm than I think I've ever seen in her. Her voice didn't break once. She spoke about the manipulation, the fear, the isolation. She told the court she didn't need revenge. She just needed to be believed. And she was. The court granted a permanent no-contact order for 10 years. Enough time for her to rebuild her life, and enough warning to him. Come near her again, and you're going to jail. Criminal charges are still pending. The DA is deciding whether to proceed based on the evidence and Ava's willingness to testify in a full trial. That's her choice now. No pressure, no expectations. She says she might go through with it, or she might not. Because in her words, I already won. He doesn't get to control me any, and she's right. Today, Ava moved into her own apartment. It's small, safe, full of light. She hung a tiny plant in the window and told me its name was Closure. I laughed, and then I cried. Because after everything, after the betrayal, the silence, the darkness, we survived. And for the first time in years, I think we're going to be okay.